Hello everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today I'll be doing a review of the brand new film, Guy Ritchie's The Covenant, not to be confused with the 2007 or so film The Covenant, which is one of my guilty pleasures. It's a terrible movie, but I find it quite hilarious for different reasons. But this film, very, very different for various reasons, starring the great Jake Gyllenhaal, of course, and a plethora of other supporting characters as well. But before going further into this review, please make sure to smash that like button, that fire button, honestly, smash the rumble button as well. Also, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel with the bell notification on. That way you know every time a video or live stream goes live on the channel. So, Guy Ritchie's The Covenant. Let's just say, Guy Ritchie has been on quite a tear over the last few years. You go all the way back to, I think, kind of like the beginning of his return to form, which was his film The Gentleman, which was my favorite film of the year that it came out. I think it was like 2019 when that movie came out. He then also did Wrath of Man, I think it was the next year, and Wrath of Man was also fantastic. Not as good as The Gentleman, but still pretty great. This year, he already had one film come out, Operation Fortune, Ruse de Guerre, which is one of my favorite films of this year so far, and very, very fun, very, very funny movie. Now this movie comes out, and I obviously went in with very high expectations. It's a film I didn't know was actually coming out just until about maybe a couple months ago, when I released my most anticipated films of the year list. As I was kind of looking through the year and I was looking through what films were coming out, I saw Guy Ritchie's name and I said, okay, I've got to make sure I am able to find this trailer and find out what's going on. Saw the trailer and immediately I was like, okay, yeah, I'm in. Guy Ritchie dealing with war. Okay, I'm interested in seeing what he's able to do here. And the general story is actually, I think, pretty compelling. So this actually takes us back in time a little bit when the U.S. Army was still in Afghanistan, and it talks about the story of how an interpreter, right, an Afghanistan interpreter, and Jake Gyllenhaal's character, who is one of the soldiers, is one of the leaders really of the battalion, the group. I'm terrible with military lingo, but he's, I think, the staff sergeant or the group sergeant or whatever it is. But as it says, U.S. Army sergeant, and in the end, it is all about the relationship that is built between these two, right? They don't know each other very well. They are clearly they're both motivated by different reasons, right? Jake Gyllenhaal is very much motivated trying to get back home to his family and trying to obviously serve his brothers in the military, whereas this Afghan interpreter, Ahmed, in the movie, he is driven by wanting to be able to basically help to provide, there's a similarity between them, right? They both care about their family, right? That is like the ultimate thing that drives their existence. But for him, it's more so about, hey, I don't care about your war, I don't care about your country, I'm just trying to help provide for the needs of my family. And I'll play the long game, because they know that, especially again during this time frame, that Afghan interpreters were given a promise, essentially, that, hey, if you help serve the U.S. military, that you will be able to receive the ability to enter into the country. You'll be able to receive visas. And what I love about the movie is that it's a movie about the Afghan war, right? It's a movie about the war in Afghanistan, and yet it is also a movie that does not really delve into any of the political ideologies of the war itself. If anything, I think it takes a view of the war that most people, at least most logical people, could be able to hold to, which is that, hey, when it comes to the soldiers are some of the bravest men and women that we ever could think of in the history of our own nation, right? Any person that is ever willing to serve their country in the military deserves a complete outright respect. And obviously, no one's perfect. There's obviously those who serve who go through a lot of trauma and go through a lot of problems and can do a lot of terrible things, even both in war and out of war. However, for the most part, again, we treat our soldiers with respect. This film treats soldiers with a lot of respect. It also, though, treats the Afghan interpreters with a lot of respect too. In addition to also adding in the fact that, hey, guess what? There's corruption on both sides, right? There's corruption within the military. There's corruption within the interpreters as well, right? There's people who are spying on both sides to a certain extent, and again, are corrupt to a certain extent. So it's really talking about just the nature of human beings, right? Human nature itself, and how humans can oftentimes become corrupted by power or corrupted by fear. And there's a lot of use of fear, right? Of using one's family to try to drive and motivate these various people. And really it drives the motivations, especially of Ahmed, right? Because his family, right? His son is, you find out later in the movie, and again, kind of minor spoiler here, but you find out the reason why he joined the U.S. military, why he offered his services to the U.S. military, was because the Taliban had killed his son. And again, that is something that drives a lot of his motivations, and also is something that a lot of us can absolutely connect with. So the main point of the film, though, is that it's focusing on this relationship between Jake Gyllenhaal's character and the character in the film. I believe it's Dar Salim is the actor's name, who plays the character of Ahmed. And he is, rather, this relationship is just brilliant. I mean, honestly, the acting by both Jake Gyllenhaal and Dar Salim is just very solid, very good. And the relationship that they build, the friendship that they build, right? The whole aspect of the covenant is the fact that both of them feel indebted to the other for different reasons, most especially for Jake Gyllenhaal's character. You find out over the course of the movie the things that Dar Salim is willing to do to help preserve Jake Gyllenhaal's life, the thing that of course Jake Gyllenhaal then feels he owes in return for all of these things is just really, again, it's amazing to see. And I have to give credit to Guy Ritchie, because I don't know who is doing his music for every single one of his movies, but there's this very similar tone that you can kind of feel like, okay, I feel like I've heard this before, and yet it's also so unique and different. But every single time, it is just something that makes you just so invested in the movie. I don't know what it is about the tones that the music that the composer for the films uses. And again, I don't even know if it's the same composer or not, but it definitely feels like it, because there's definitely this similar tone that's used. But I mean, when things are getting really intense, the music starts to build up, and it's that, and again, this overarching tone that is just so good, so well done. And again, it's a beautiful film to behold because of that. Most of the cinematography is also pretty beautiful, though that is, I think, where I start to get into some of the negatives of this movie. I think some of the cinematography is also a little bit rough. There's a lot of use of shaky cam, especially when any of the war scenes are happening. A lot of these shots that with the shaky cam, the handheld camera, trying to make things, and I understand why they do it from a technical standpoint. It makes things look more real, more authentic. Sometimes you're able to hide certain things in the shakiness of the camera that you don't have to worry about, right? It's different than you have a camera just, completely focus on one location, focus on one thing, where at that point, because of that, you can, you really can't hide from anything. With shaky cam, you can sometimes hide certain things, whether that be certain edits or cuts, or just not having to worry about doing stunts or other things like that. I've always been someone where I like it in very minimal amounts, but during the war sequences, unfortunately, during the battle sequences, there is a little bit too much use of it from time to time. But other than that, though, I think that most of the cinematography, other than those sequences, is just really beautiful. There's a lot of really, again, Guy Ritchie works very well with his cinematographers, where they are able to come up with these really interesting shots, right? These really interesting, fade ins, fade outs. I will say also that one thing I was disappointed by is he's kind of become known over the last several films for starting off his films in a brilliant way, like having some of the best opening sequences of any film that's ever come out in a given year. This is the exception. This one does not have, I think, a very powerful opening. It's one that sets the tone, but it's not one that I think is really as powerful. I mean, the opening for Wrath of Man, for instance, is just brilliant. The cinematography is gorgeous during that entire sequence. You look to the opening scene to The Gentleman. You look to the opening scene of Operation Fortune. I mean, this past year. And this movie doesn't have that. And that's why it's also different, right? It's not your typical Guy Ritchie fare. It's not your typical Guy Ritchie film with the typical Guy Ritchie humor or even the typical Guy Ritchie tropes. And I think that's what makes it kind of refreshing too, right? It's a war film, but it's one that is a story that really hasn't been told, right? No one has ever told a story about, not just the soldiers in Afghanistan, but in this case, the relationship between the soldiers and with the Afghan interpreters. In fact, at the very end, the end credits, it features a lot of actual real photos of American soldiers with their Afghan interpreters. Because one of the things I like too is that towards the end, and this again might be a little bit of a spoiler, but at the very end, there's a text on the screen saying essentially how many interpreters were left behind, were just completely abandoned, not to mention the ones who were killed because of them helping out the United States military. And it really, honestly, I think makes you frustrated, not so much with the U.S. military, but more so with the governmental structures, more so with the leadership of the military, right? Because they're the ones that are making these ultimate decisions. They're the ones that have the power to do these things, right? It's not on the soldiers. In fact, this film shows the soldier, right, saying, screw this hierarchy, like screw this system, right, where, no, we promised this person that if they served, if they helped us, that we would help them. Why are we putting them in a situation where we know that they're essentially guaranteed to die because of them helping us? And I think that's something, hopefully, I hope that that's something that all of us can come to agreement on is just downright evil. And again, the people who are in positions of power who make those kinds of decisions and who leave human lives just there to get lost, it's very, very sad. But overall, I did like this movie a lot. I think the story was very, very solid. It does take a little while to get going. As I said, it didn't have that opening sequence to kind of pull you in like all the other films that he has done, that all the other Guy Ritchie films has done. So I thought that was a bit of a missed opportunity. The score is fantastic. Cinematography is good for the most part. I do think that a lot of the shaky cam stuff is a little too much from time to time. So if you're especially not a fan or not one that does well with shaky cam, you may want to avoid this movie as well, but very, very powerful. And I would think that by the end of the movie, you just feel like you've been on this long journey with these two characters. You feel just so compelled by the relationship that is built, right? Even though they don't know that much about each other, there's no sequences of them talking, long discourses, right? Instead, it's just actions, it's scenes, right? It is just choices and decisions that they make that helps build the relationship that you see on screen, and it's done incredibly well. Not to mention, you do have, I think it's Anthony Starr. Let me double check here and see. I think this is the guy that plays, Homelander. So Homelander's in the movie with a supporting character, and let's just say it was very weird to see him not as Homelander, but he was great in the movie and a great supporting character. And I think his character and the group that he's a part of is one of my favorites because there is a great climax scene in this movie. And I won't go into much detail other to say it's awesome. And when you get to it, you feel like there is a giant payoff to everything that you've seen these people go through. And what happens, you're just like, I mean, I had people in the theater who were laughing, but it was one of those like joy laughter because of what you've seen in the movie. And that's pretty much all I'm going to say about that. But I think the film is fantastic. I'm going to go ahead and give this film a solid B. As I said, the story's pretty good, but I don't think it had that good starting point that really gets you invested right from the get-go. It's a slow burn in that way, but it's a very good slow burn. And some of the cinematography, as I said, is just a little bit too, I don't know. It could have been a lot better with those handheld shots, especially. But those are my thoughts on the movie. Have you seen Guy Ritchie's The Covenant? Again, definitely a film. If you like war movies, I think that you might enjoy this. If you like slow burns, as it says, action, crime, thriller, it's definitely got some thrilling elements to it as well. And if you like films that especially that will pay respect to the people in uniform, will pay respect to soldiers, but also at the same time, call out the nonsense that should be called out, at the very least in the text in the beginning and end of the movie, but also not getting too overly political with it, then I think you'll enjoy this movie. So what are your thoughts about it? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you like this video, smash that like button, like that fire button, honestly, smash the rumble button. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And as always, God bless. And now for a huge special shout out to all of my Patreon Subscribe Star and Locals members who are at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above. Starting off with Patreon with Father Luca Illick, Garrett Searles, Joe Horn, Jonathan Carney, Orange at Reviews, who you can check out over at his YouTube channel by the same name, Laura, the Modern Major General Story, Rosetta Allen, who you can check out at her YouTube channel at Eagle Writer, and Miss Modern Muses, who you can check out at her YouTube channel by the same name as well. To my Subscribe Star people, we got Matt317, check him out on his Twitch channel by the same name, Fast Reaction, The R, Mr. Roy, J-Rod, the Beer Guru, and the K-Man, and you can check out the K-Man over at xtheboundaries.co. And lastly, to my Locals members, Miss Minnesota Hockey Fan, How About a Hockey Player, J.H. Schwalbach, Brett D90, and the amazing lawyer, Robert Barnes. If you want your name shouted at the end of every video and live stream, check out the top link in the video description below to join the Keeper of the Bifrost level. You also get access to other things like a podcast that I do every month with John the Flick Flickinger, and also I do giveaways for my Keeper of the Bifrost level people and above, and also my Chosen of Valhalla monthly stream. If any of that stuff sounds interesting, especially those giveaways, which I do give away 4K steelbooks, all kinds of stuff all month long, check out that top link. You're all amazing and beautiful people. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day, a blessed Easter, and as always, God bless.